This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a soul-led leadership coach to women in midlife who are wanting more meaning in the second half. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Episode 144. Have you ever wondered what your inner power may look like as an animal? Well, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz and you can find out. It's just a quick 2-minute quiz that I created for you. This is a topic that comes up so often in my coaching work with women where they stand in their power and feeling empowered. And so you can head over there, NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz and check this quick little thing out for you. And if you want more tips and information, you can just sign up after you take the quiz. Welcome, sisters. Today I want to talk about dying without regrets, or at least very, very, very few of them. Part of what has come about for me, why I wanted to talk about this, is I know as COVID continues to go on in the world, that things here in the U.S. are starting to open up. There's more people that are getting vaccinated and getting out and about, things like that. And some different fears are starting to come up for folks. And as somebody who is a deep thinker and a deep feeler, you know, these are topics that I think about and go, that would be a good podcast episode. Well, some people might think it's quite morbid, but I think it's something to ponder. I think it's something to question because, again, I'm very much about helping you really go inward so that you can continue to grow and not stay stuck in fears or playing small. And so that's really what I want to talk about today. You know, I've talked about before, right? I'm a highly sensitive person, and I'm an introvert as well, and I'm an INFJ. And so, again, being a story keeper, and I think sometimes a storyteller, I get stories from, hundreds of people every single year, and they turn into thousands of stories that I listen to every single year. And I've been doing this for a while, so I'm always fascinated when I'm hearing things and people are sharing that, they regret not having gone after a job promotion. They regret not telling their grandparents that they love them. They regret not saying goodbye to a friend before they died. They regret not doing an adventure or a trip or something or other before they were unable to do that. And I remember about 15 years ago now, I think it's at least that, if not more, I was on a vacation with my family, and I remember my dad stating when we were heading to someplace, I don't remember where we were at, but we were heading to someplace, and he was sharing how much he regretted working so much when we were younger, when I was a kid. And I was looking at him like, what are you talking about? He had a full-time job, and then he had his own little side gig that he did as well. So he was also his own, entrepreneur. And I know part of the reason why he did it was he was providing for the family, and there was a fear of not having enough money, right? Or that we would run out. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a little bit, and then she went back to work, and he was just concerned, and I think honestly some of it was him just trying to get out of the house a little bit. He needed his own kind of downtime, but not understanding his own temperament and his needs. I think it was one way to kind of avoid things. And as he got older, then he shared that he regretted it. And I told him, I'm like, Dad, I forgive you if that's what you need to hear. I said, but there's no, grudges or I'm holding you against, or I hold that against you for doing what you were doing. And it also gave him some pleasure to do some of the work that he was doing on his own. But it's fascinating, right? To be living with a regret for years and years, which really does prevent you from being in the moment. It prevents you from allowing the moment you're in to be open to whatever may come, the joy, the excitement, the gratitude, because you're starting to think like, oh man, I wish I would have done that sooner. I wish I could have said that differently, whatever it may be. I've heard so many stories over the years of something similar from various women that I've worked with. And it often takes death to really kind of rock people's worlds, to kind of stir and wake them again. And I know when we hit midlife, sometimes it's a serious illness. It's the illness of a loved one. It's the loss. It's because it may be a loss of a job. It may be moving. It may be the children moving out. And all of a sudden we can kind of wake up again and not be in our daily trances of like, oh, I just keep doing the same with the same with the same. And that's all there is to this. And I know for many people over this past year and a half, I've had various colleagues who lost friends and family members to COVID, and it has spurred them to have some conversations with others about not taking things for granted, about living your best life, whatever that definition is to you. I've got some colleagues, man, their definition of living their best life is literally being on the road all the time and going to different places, which is so cool to see. They are taking those trips. They're still doing their work, but they also are like, I don't want to live in a house. I want to live on the road and in these different places, which is just so cool to see that they are able to do that. There's different colleagues, I've interviewed on this podcast that have done something similar, and they've all kind of come back with whatever they've needed to come back with or woken up to, which is really cool. If you remember, I don't remember which conversations when Tamara Powell, who's now Driscoll, she got married a few months back, we had conversations about kind of like our routines and self-care and things like that. And she shared on different episodes how when she does her morning routine, she writes down like, there's a countdown, like how many more time left do I have on this planet? Now, we know that we don't know when we're going to die, but that everybody is going to die at some point in time. You just don't know when that is. And so having that so consciously looked at every single day helps you really live more intentionally. It helps you really say, what's that thing I want to do today that makes my life even more meaningful? So I'm going to challenge you today, or actually really invite you, so that you don't fall back into the trance of just kind of being in life versus really living life, that as things are opening back up and you may be heading back into office settings, or your kids have already been back into school, or you begin to travel some more, whatever that may look like. If you knew you only had 5 years left to live, what, if anything, would you do differently? What if you only had 10 years left to live? Is there a step, an action step that you could take today that gets you one step closer to that dream or desire? For example, let's say there is a job position coming up, or maybe it's a leadership position, and someone has moved to a different department, they've left the company, whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool if I could do that. I think I'm skilled. I think it would continue to stretch me. I want to be able to lead others. What's that one thing that you could do today so that you can put your, application in for that job position? If you want to retire in 10 years, what's the one step you could take today to start to begin to make that happen? That may be first just looking at your budget. It may be first saying, I got to set up a bank account. It may be, I need to set up a retirement account. It may be talking to the HR department of how do I set up a retirement account through work. It may be, okay, I'm going to cut back on the Starbucks coffee so that I can have, an extra $5 every single week, which is $20 a month, whatever it may be, so that I could start putting money back for my retirement account. Another action step I invite you to really explore, similar to like what happened with my dad and what he had said those many years ago. Is there something that you need to forgive yourself for? Did you react to your teenage kid coming home way after curfew and you yelled and screamed at them because really underneath the anger was fear that they were in an accident, that something bad was happening to them? and it came out as screaming and yelling. Yes, still hold your boundaries, still give your teen a consequence for not coming home during curfew, and let them know how their conduct, their behavior impacted you. No, they're not responsible for your emotions, but they are responsible for holding up their end of the bargain. If you have some rules about when they come home and they choose not to do that, then there's a consequence for it. But when you let them know, it's like these behaviors that you do impact others. It's helping them understand and learning. They're not the only person on the planet, which most teens, think that way. They don't have that full prefrontal cortex yet. But by you sharing how that impacted you, you help them understand what's going on, and you just own where you were. And then you ask for forgiveness for yelling at them. That's part of that give and take, but no longer living in that past, no longer living underneath that fear. It's like, okay, I may never have this conversation with them again, and I want to put peace to this. I want to work through this so we don't stay stuck in this. I remember reading years ago in one of Carolyn Miss's books about how a friend had told her that each conversation she had is a gift, in that you'll never ever have that exact same conversation with that person ever again. That each occurrence is special, that to have gratitude for it and in it, because you may have, maybe it's a similar conversation with that person again, but it won't be the same as the first time. And you may actually never ever get to see or have that conversation with the group of people that you're in. So it's really, the part of this is staying in the present moment. And it's really being there with whatever is going on in the conversation, whatever the event is, and not taking it for granted. Because when we take it for granted, we're like, oh, I should have told them how much I enjoyed the conversation, then share it. If you get home and you think, send a text. I did that recently with somebody. I was like, we had a conversation, and I don't know, it was like an hour or two later, and I'm like, man, I am just so grateful for the friendship. And I sent her a text and let her know that. It's like, I don't know if, will I ever get to talk with her again? I don't know. I hope so. But if I don't, I want her to know how much I appreciate her. So my invitation for you is, if fear were not holding you back, what would you do with your precious day today? If you keep living with regrets, like I said, it prevents you from being in this moment. If you are living with regrets, it prevents you from being present. It prevents you from fully showing up and being in whatever's going on in your life. It keeps you really looking backward and staying stuck in the past. If you recall, back in episode 17, I talked about those limiting beliefs and really paying attention to, what do you tell yourself over and over and over? Because if we continue to think the same thoughts, you're attempting to create a future that may look different, but you can't, because you're still thinking and doing the same thing that you did years ago. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and cycle. It's like, well, my life can't be anything different. It's like, well, yes, because you're still thinking and doing the same thing over and over and over. When you hit midlife, though, it's like, okay, those obligations begin to fall away. You really are, it's a chance to really wake up and heal the wounds that need to be healed so that you can become much more spiritually mature. It's being able to move from living in regrets, worrying about what may or may not happen, and begin to accept as life continues to unfold. It doesn't mean you don't create goals and you don't take steps to go after them. It means you no longer abdicate from yourself. You no longer abdicate from your responsibilities. So if you've got some mistakes you've made in the past, to yourself, to others, forgive yourself so you can move forward. Write them down. Write down those things that you want to forgive yourself for, and then do a little ritual around it. Once you've written them down and you've truly forgiven yourself, then burn the piece of paper, safely, of course, but burn it. It's practicing gratitude every single day for what is in your life, who is in your life, that you are waking up alive. It's being able to love yourself so much that you really do stay in your power. Similar to what I talked about last week in episode 143 about being an empower and my logo representing the different aspects of a woman's life. And in order for it to run smoothly, run in harmony, run in a balanced way, it's making sure you're looking at every one of those areas and saying, what's my guiding force in this? And am I doing the things that I am wanting to, or am I waiting for that permission to do to do those things I want? Am I waiting for validation to say it's okay for me to go after this thing? Now, if you are listening to this episode and you heard me say, Nicole said I can totally quit my job, spend all my money, and just go do whatever I want, that is not what I'm saying. But if you do choose to do that, that is 100% on you. I'm saying get curious. Is there any place in your life that you are holding on to regrets? And if so, 1, do you need to forgive yourself for those mistakes or those past hurts or whatever? 2, do you need to forgive somebody else for that? 3, what's this next step? If you've got something you do want to go after, again, whether it's career-wise, a relationship-wise, to go play, to invest in a hobby, to start another side business while you're employed somewhere else, to share something deep and profound with somebody that you love and you trust, I'm going to encourage you to take that step, take that small step to go into the direction so that when you are on your deathbed, and may that be many, many years from now, you're not looking back with regret. That you've really said, you know what? I lived my best life. I did what I needed to do to the best of my ability with the information that I had, and that I lived a more soul-led life versus allowing the fears to hold me back, to tell me that I'm not worthy, to allow me to say, oh, yeah, who am I to actually go after this thing? Well, who are you not to? All right, my lovelies, until next time, take care. Thank you for listening. And if you're interested to find out what your inner power is as an animal, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz. Till next time.